Hey folks, welcome to Movie News Monday, where every Monday live on twitch.tv/JupyGorg, we go over the news of the week regarding movies, TV, entertainment, pop culture, everything you really care about. We do these Movie News Mondays every Monday live, and today we're just going to dive right in, starting with these crazy news coming out of AMC Theaters. AMC Theaters reports that they're going to be running more commercials ahead of movies. Now, folks, if you have been to a movie theater in the past 8 years, you are well aware that there is at least 25 to 30 minutes of trailers before a movie begins. That's not to mention the Maria Menounos pre-movie show, Newbie, I think it's called, or Perry Nimroff, shout out. Look, I love getting to the theater early to see my idols on the screen, see them doing the interviews and doing the pre-show stuff and the quizzes. But folks, we have so much already right before a movie starts. And movies are getting so long these days too. Like, don't get me wrong, I love it. I love sitting in a theater. I love how it encourages me to be extremely present and watching a movie in an ideal large screen format. But it's already 3 hours plus 30 minutes of trailers plus parking and walking back to my car and driving home. It is a full shift at work to go see a movie these days. So AMC Theaters looking to run more trailers ahead of movies is crazy. But it's not just more trailers, it's commercials. AMC Theaters is looking to add in platinum spot advertising, which is crazy to me because before every single movie begins, you're already getting platinum advertising for the theater that you're already in. Isn't that absolutely wild? Like, you pay to go to AMC or Regal Cinemas or wherever it is that you like to go, and after you watch 30 minutes of trailers and the lights dim all the way and you're like, okay, here we go, the show's about to start, what happens? They go, you're watching on Dolby Cinema or Regal Premium Experience or all these laser at AMC, and it's the movie trailer voice guy, like he still has a gig and it's doing these kind of voiceovers. And it just adds like, sign up for Regal Unlimited or get your AMC stubs, official sponsor by Pepsi and Coca-Cola and all these other things. So now we're just going to throw in like a Lexus ad or, I don't know, Poppy or, whatever it is going to be intermixed in there with all your trailers. I don't know that this is the answer. I mean, I think about CinemaCon earlier this year where I believe it was the president of Lionsgate that was just talking about how one of the things that we can do to benefit the theatrical experience is to cut down on trailers, because folks are already seeing these things online. If they want to see these movies, like, they know where to find the trailers. So is this the best call? I don't think so, because I don't think that the movie theaters where you go to see more advertisements. I think the movie theaters where you go to get away from that, because streaming services are already packed with ads. They're raising the prices on all the ad-free plans so often that, like, all you have left to do is go to the movie theater to avoid the advertising. Bring back intermission so they can play mid-roll ads. Now you're onto something, especially if it's going to be a 3-hour movie with 30-minute commercials. Your boy needs a bathroom break, is all I'm saying. So you know what? I am more than happy to throw in a bathroom break intermission, and they can roll, the Hyundai Tucson commercial during that. Moving on, next news we have here from Deadline. John Greenbaum has been tapped to direct a Care Bears movie. So if you were worried that maybe Hollywood had learned their lesson and that we weren't going to be doing a whole bunch of remakes, sorry. Sorry, no, it's all good. We're still good. Look, here's the thing. Josh Greenbaum, I think, is very interesting choice. I saw his documentary, Will and Harper. It is a beautiful, beautiful documentary. It's about Will Ferrell and his best friend, who late in life comes out as a trans woman. Harper is her name. And they take a road trip across the country and just kind of get to reacquaint themselves with one another following Harper's transition. It's a beautiful documentary. It's super, super heartwarming and sad and beautiful. Go watch it. It's on Netflix. Like, if you have Netflix, which I know most of you do, go watch it. You're going to enjoy it. In either case, he's also directing the next Spaceballs movie, which, full disclosure, I thought maybe had died. They had announced that this movie was coming years ago, and we hadn't really heard anything about it, but it seems that it is still on the docket. And now next up is Care Bears. Do we need a Care Bears movie? Probably not. Warner Brothers. We're going to talk about you today, Warner Brothers. I can't imagine the benefit of a Care Bears movie other than just trying to get more IP under their belt that could be turned into a multifaceted franchise, right? Like Care Bears, you're talking about licensing with toys and making more toys. You're talking about maybe spin-off TV shows, spin-off streaming service content. I mean, Warner Brothers just fumbled the bag with their deal with Sesame Street and, the Sesame Workshop. So they're going to be in need of children's content. I believe Sony is working on the Smurfs, so they have that going for themselves. So Care Bears, I guess, makes sense for Warner Brothers, but like in the loosest of terms. This is just not an IP that I think people are asking for. And although I fully thank God we're getting the Smurfs, you're absolutely right. It would be a dark time without the Smurfs. Look, I think Josh Greenbaum could have something here, and there's a version of the world where we could have a really interesting film brought out of this. Obviously, the first thought that a lot of people have of like, really, this kind of movie is probably the Lego Movie. I think a lot of folks were really surprised by how a unique voice and a unique set of artists could kind of bring a obvious IP cash grab into a really bit more of an artistic interpretation. I'm thinking in terms of animation, which is why I said Lego Movie. The real big example is Barbie. But even that, like, Barbie's now getting a sequel, and it's becoming a little bit more, I don't know. And that's Warner Brothers as well. So I understand they're maybe just trying to have lightning strike twice. I just don't think the world's asking for Care Bears. I just don't. I'll see. I will be more than happy to be proved wrong and have this be an absolute hit. As long as Rihanna voices Music Bear and she makes another song. They're already developing a Polly Pocket movie, actually. So you're not even off base with that. They actually are doing a Polly Pocket movie that is in active development right now. So we'll see. We're going to get all our favorite childhood toys and IPs, and not even our like elder millennial childhood toys coming back to the theaters. Moving on, speaking of toys and nostalgia, Monster High movie enrolls Megan director Gerard Johnstone. What? Look, I think Megan has a very interesting tone, and I haven't seen the first Megan. I've seen all the advertisements. I've seen a lot of clips over the years. I think that the tone of that movie definitely lends itself to something like this. To be honest, Monster High, I knew it was toys, but like the commercials were always bangers because there was like so much lore. Every single Monster High commercial was like a lore drop. Let me see.
Frankie's electrifying, stitching with style. Claudine's killer boots, fantastic smile. Dracula's vamping count fab and more. Laguna's true blue, fishnets galore.
This is So yeah, we're getting a movie. I remember there being more lore in these.
Rule number 13, always be open to freaky fat friends like Jennifer Long, Katrine Deneuve.
Okay, you lost me at Katrine Deneuve. They can't all be the Barbie movie. They can't all be the Lego movie. They can't all be the Care Bear movie. I don't know why we need this. Look, pessimistic hat off. This could be a fun franchise and a fun movie for the intended target audience. But it totally just is trying to sell 30-year-olds the toys that they grew up on. That's exactly what it is. Yes. That's exactly what it is. This is, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, there's so many conversations going on right now about like why folks aren't going to the movies. It's because these are the films that are getting greenlit. Who's aching for Monster High and Care Bear when movies like Sinners come out? You know, this is actually interesting to me. Blumhouse is looking to buy back the Saw franchise from Twisted Pictures. So James Wan, the director and writer of the original Saw movie, has a strategic partnership with Blumhouse. So they're heavily involved. And Blumhouse did sell, or I don't know that they sold the rights. I think they just they weren't around back then. But in either case, the Saw franchise got, sequeled to all hell. I even remember Saw 3. Do y'all remember Saw 3D? Like, they made that happen. But James Wan is involved with Blumhouse. I believe he's like deep, like a executive leadership in that studio, if not on like a contractual basis, because of all the Insidious and the Conjuring movies and all of that. He's involved in many capacities with all that. So to see him get the Saw franchise back would be kind of nice. It is kind of like coming around full picture of the work that he creates, kind of flies off and gets a life of his own, and then he gets to bring it back in and finish it out or start it over or whatever feels right to him. I do think it's kind of fun when you get to see that kind of full circle moment happen with work that someone has created. So good for James Wan if this goes through. This will probably mean we'll get a new Saw movie, and maybe akin to Ridley Scott and the Prometheus movies. This might be a little bit of a, hey, yes, these versions came out, but we're going to ignore all that and jump into my next version of the movie. Which, speaking of, Ridley Scott had an Alien film in development, but it appears that it no longer is. And he just kind of cites the fact that where the franchise is going right now, it's just not aligning with what he wanted to do. So his version of whatever the next Alien film is gone. And this to me is very bittersweet news. I am a big fan of the Alien franchise. I even like Prometheus and kind of that story arc. I thought it was very interesting what he was trying to do, and it went very lore heavy and very deep into something completely different, which I thought was fun. Sci-fi movies, the original Alien was a very small, in-depth sci-fi movie, and kind of expanding that into a bigger world was kind of fun, and it's fun to see all that sci-fi go further and further. But at the same time, Alien Romulus was just so good, and they were really setting up something really cool there, and it looks like maybe we're leading into a tie-in with the Predator. I don't fully know. Look, ultimately, I think Ridley Scott is extremely talented, and he has done some incredible things in the world of film and TV, and his contributions are monumental. But it may be time to just be time. Mia Goth is set to play the villain in Sean Levy's Star Wars Starfighter. Mia Goth, you might know her from the X trilogy. So Pearl, X, and Maxine. She's incredible in those films. She's a really like up and coming actor right now. She's popped off in a handful of roles, gotten very, very recognized in sort of the indie scene. Kind of my barometer for that is she was at the Savannah Film Festival a few years ago, and that's a place where I think actors who are like on the precipice of exploding tend to go. For instance, Isabella Merced was just there a few years ago. And look at where she is now. So in either case, Mia Goth looks to be playing the villain opposite Ryan Gosling. There were some rumors that Mikey Madison was circling that same role. So Mikey Madison, Mia Goth type. Clearly they're looking for someone younger, someone who's maybe not in a very physically intimidating Mia Goth and Mikey Madison are both tiny women. That's the point I'm trying to make there. So maybe gives us a little bit of intel into what type of villain it's going to be. But in either case, I know that this movie is kind of fast tracking into production. It really wants me to kill this page. I'm almost done, I promise. This is going to be the first Star Wars movie we get in theaters since the sequel trilogy. I think Sean Levy is a very interesting choice for Star Wars. I think that he plays well in franchises and plays well with original movies. I really like the Adam Project, which I think is probably the closest thing to a Star Wars movie. And having this be titled Starfighter just tells me that it is going to be a very focused Star Wars movie and maybe not as force heavy, which coming off of Andor, I really appreciate. So I'll remain extremely cautiously optimistic on this one. Confirmed, this is happening. One of Them Days sequel in the works. Keke Palmer and SZA are both coming back for another take in One of Them Days. Now the question is, I know everyone's thinking of it. I made a joke about it on Twitter. Is it going to be another One of Them Days? 2 of Them Days? One of Them Days again? It's just, there's so many different jokes that you could take with it. My vote is on 2 of Them Days. Well, no, because it's... First of all, this is great news, and I'm super excited about this for a multitude of reasons. One of those weeks, ooh, you're onto something. You're onto something. This is super exciting to me for a handful of reasons. Back at the beginning of the year, we did a stream where we watched a bunch of trailers for all the movies that were coming out. And I remember this one specifically standing out. I went to go see this one because there's not a lot of small comedies, like small contained comedies like these, that are making their way to theaters anymore. One of Them Days should have, by all accounts, been a movie that, and I mean this with all the love in my heart, this could have been and should have been a movie that disappeared on Netflix, right? It could have been one that had like, a fun promo run and a bunch of ads, and then it just disappears. It came out in January, which is usually a throwaway month for movies. It's a really big gamble to put a movie in January because people are coming off the holidays. They already watched all the big movies during Christmas or Thanksgiving. Money's a little bit tighter at the start of the new year. People are getting back to work. They're not thinking about going out to the movie theater. So sticking a movie in January is usually just like, we're just putting it out so we can put it out. But this movie did really well. It had really solid legs. It performed well at the box office. Critically, people really enjoyed it. I thought it was really great. It was really funny. The cast, specifically some of the supporting cast, was incredible. And the press around this movie was really positive. Like, people loved seeing Keke Palmer and SZA doing interviews together, being organic friends, all this kind of stuff. So this movie had enough traction going for it, and it was a small enough movie as far as like a budgetary standpoint that it just makes sense for this to get a sequel. I love that the cast is returning. I hope, actually right there, the film's original creative team. So there we go. Same writers, same directors. I know Issa Rae was a producer on this, and I'd love to see her influencing a little bit more of this next generation of comedy, which I think is something that I have a lot of fear about the current state of comedy. There's a lot of folks that have this idea that comedy is dead or comedy can't exist in the current culture. And I think that's frankly a load of bullshit. I think that people are hilarious regardless of the cultural movement and the cultural zeitgeist and what you can and can't say and all that stuff. So folks who say that comedy is dead are just scared to play in the fair field that comedy should be in. This movie was funny. This movie was really funny. This cast was really funny. And there's not a lot of big comedies coming out in theaters anymore because folks are scared or nervous that funny's just not going to hit the same way that it does. But kind of refocusing my point here, we kind of had like a natural flow of generational comedic actors. It's kind of like a stepping stone of one comedic success opens the door for another's comedic rise. And I fear that not having comedy movies in the theaters doesn't allow for that sort of next generation of comedians and comedic actors to rise up. Yes, you can see them on streaming. A lot of times you'll see them on television, but I think it's very different when you have, like, say, a funny character in a serious movie or like a funny character in like a Marvel movie or something like that versus a movie that is strictly a comedy. And like, that's the whole thing that you're trying to do, you know? So, One of Them Days getting a sequel, I think is really promising for the state of comedy. I'm really curious to see what they do. And it's such a self-contained premise. So I think it'd be very easy for them to do that again and again and again and again. I hope it becomes a franchise. All right, folks, we got some AI news. I'm sorry. It happens. Lionsgate Vice Chairman Michael Burns says they're considering how AI can be used to change existing films into more kid-friendly or animated. You know, this was a crazy take. He was specifically talking about like how generative AI could be useful for getting stories in front of different audiences in different ways. Like, he was specifically saying, oh, we could make John Wick and then say, do it in anime or make it PG-13 and I'll just have that movie, which I think is just, again, let me put on my optimistic hat here. I get what he's trying to say. Like, if there's still upset about no live action Kingdom Hearts, I'm sorry I baited you. If in case y'all don't know the context, I was doing an intro to why AI is bad and made a fake Kingdom Hearts announcement using generative AI to prove a point. That video is linked. You can go watch it. But I understand the point that Burns is trying to say here of like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could leverage this tool of AI to make our films more accessible with different sort of easy fixes, right? Hey, if we make this movie in a different style, say an action movie in an animated style, it's not showing actual like human violence, which is something that gets past the MPAA and the rating system, or even like television rating systems. So like, I understand the premise of, wow, wouldn't it be great if it was easier to get our films in front of other people? The problem I see with that is I think that it's only thinking about the benefits from a business standpoint of getting more eyes on something, because Burns and other vice chairman level executives at these studios are probably thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could sell more of our movie and put it in syndication and put it on more streaming services and put it on cable or send it back to theaters in these different versions with minimal work. A computer can do it. We don't have to pay writers. We don't have to pay animators. We don't have to do this, and that. And sure, as a business person, that generates a bunch of profit, but to what extent, right? To the extent that you're not hiring animators, that you're not hiring editors or remixing artists or anything like that. Like, you're sacrificing the work that everyday people who went to film school, people who did hundreds of hours mastering their craft, to not be able to do the work so that you could just make more money. Not to mention the fact that most of these AI systems, in fact, every single AI system is trained, a generative AI system is trained on copyright data. How can you assure yourself that you're not stealing work from other artists or stealing work from other studios? In fact, I can go on VO3 on Gemini and make a generated image of Spider-Man jumping off a building. Google doesn't know Spider-Man. So, it's tricky. It's really tricky. Yeah. So, yeah, why do it through AI when we already have Disney showing us that you can successfully spend millions of dollars and make billions of dollars back? It worked. The live action remakes work for them, but it works for them because there are hundreds of people that are working together to make that possible. And it's just, I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. There really is no ethical way to do AI. There really isn't. Not yet, at least. That being said, there are some people who are trying to figure out the right way to leverage AI. Natasha Lyonne, if you haven't heard, is directing a movie that is heavily using artificial intelligence. In fact, the movie is called Uncanny Valley, and it is a movie that is going to be created using traditional filmmaking and generative AI. So Natasha Lyonne is a great actor, and I've really loved her career, and I think she's a really fun personality, but I'm not in love with the idea that her directorial debut is going to really lean into leveraging generative AI. The whole idea is like, oh, this girl gets pulled into a world of augmented reality, and AI is going to be creating all of the visual effects essentially for this world. And on one hand, I guess it kind of makes sense on an artistic vision level of like, oh, it's supposed to be uncanny and it's supposed to be a dreamlike world and it's not supposed to feel real. It's augmented reality. So AI can really fill the gaps there. But she's talking about an ethical model that's trained on copyright clear data. And it's like, we can't confirm that right now because there's no way to legislate that and there's no way to make sure. So that's the biggest concern I think a lot of folks have, and why Lyonne is catching a lot of flack for this. And look, she even says it's all about protecting artists and confronting the oncoming wave. And I don't think that that's an off-base take. Like, I see where she's coming from with it, but there really just isn't systems in place right now that are making sure that these models are ethical. And then again, because there's no such thing as ethical AI, you have to consider, like, even if it was trained ethically, you're taking jobs away from human beings. You're creating an environmental impact by running these AI servers. And there's no way. There's no way to do it right. And I don't know what the right answer is, but I think that we need to be having these questions. Maybe the studios all steal from one another. I think, yeah, that's... and then they start suing each other, and that's when it gets real. When studios start committing copyright infringement in one another, that's what's going to make the difference. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So AI is okay to take visual effects artist jobs, but not actor jobs. Yeah. I mean, Natasha Lyonne was part of that strike. 100%. 100%. Yeah. 100%. Now, something that sounds like it's AI generated, but it's not. Ayo Edebiri confirms that she is writing the Barney movie for A24, with Daniel Kaluuya producing and possibly directing. I have absolutely no idea what this film is going to be. I'm hoping that this is Barbie and Barney Look, I like Ayo Edebiri. I think she's hilarious. Daniel Kaluuya is an incredible actor, and he has made some really, really good acting decisions as far as like what films to partake in. So clearly he knows something. So as a producer, I can certainly see him succeeding. A24, you really can't go wrong these days with A24. They rarely ever miss. Barney, this is like everything we were saying about Monster High and the Care Bears. I don't know who's asking for this, but this creative team, I'm much, much more enthusiastic about. And it started with, what are the movies I want to make? And this is what I think makes me feel the most excited about this quote and this project, is that it began with a filmmaker, an artist having a vision and then choosing to move forward with it, as opposed to a studio having a brand and finding someone who can fit into that brand. So we'll see. Barney, A24, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And folks, this is a little bit of a sad one. We have talked about the death of the movie poster in recent years and how posters have kind of just turned into floating heads. And a lot of that I think we can attribute to this incredible man right here. But when he did it, let me just say he did it right. Let me introduce you to Drew Struzan, who is a painter who has painted all of your favorite movie posters. So I'm just going to scroll through these and we can take a moment to appreciate it. Drew, unfortunately, in his age, has Alzheimer's, and it has progressed to a level that he really just cannot paint anymore, which is extremely sad and tragic to think about. But this man, and his family, I hope, can rest easy knowing that the work that he has created has reached billions of people over the years and has made an incredible impact in the way that films are advertised and films are immortalized. I mean, you can't put a movie on your wall, but you can put a poster. We joke a lot about the floating head posters and how sometimes they look really bad, but what really kind of led that specific trend, I think in maybe the best way, was Drew Struzan's work. So if any of these look familiar, and I know they do, you have seen his work. He defined the genre for movie posters altogether. Personally, I love the Star Wars prequel ones, the Back to the Future trilogy, how it keeps, first it's Marty and then it's Doc and then it just kind of grows from there. All these incredible Star Wars ones. How many times has he drawn all the 80s action heroes? The poster for The Thing is iconic, so incredibly iconic. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on and on. So much love to him and his family. Alzheimer's is an incredibly challenging condition to be in, and I wish nothing but the best for him and his family. And thank you, Drew, for your art and for sharing that with me. In particular, the Indiana Jones posters meant a lot to me as a kid growing up. I would just stare at the VHS boxes that we had because it made me feel like I was experiencing the movie. So thank you for that, truly. Yeah, what an incredible legacy to leave. They should be very, very proud. Jumping over to a little bit of Marvel news. This Vision series, it's really shaping up to be something. We just talked about last week, they casted Jocasta, who is Ultron's wife, essentially. Edith, who, if you recall, was Spider-Man's artificial intelligence in the Home trilogy. They have cast a live-action Edith. Emily Hampshire will be playing Edith, and it looks as though what we're setting up here is all the AIs from the Marvel Universe having physical forms, maybe kind of matching Vision. I have no idea what this show is. I believe that they are leading into something maybe that matches similarly to the very famous Vision comic book run in which he has a family, and perhaps all the cast of his family is made up of all these other AIs. I'm very curious. I also do find it interesting that Jack Schaefer and Matt Shackman are not involved with this one. I know they mentioned that this Vision series is going to kind of be the closer for the WandaVision trilogy, but not having that same creative team like we did with Agatha all along, I'm a little bit concerned about, but cautiously optimistic. So there's been some more casting updates for the Harry Potter series. We have Lux Pratt is playing Draco Malfoy, and Johnny Flynn is playing Lucius Malfoy. Good for them. Good for them. I'm sure that's going to be big roles. I do think we gotta talk about Tom Felton and what he had to say, because it was honestly extremely disappointing. For those of you who don't know, Tom Felton is returning to the world of Harry Potter. Tom Felton is going to be playing Draco Malfoy, or specifically the older version of Draco Malfoy, in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which is the Broadway show. It's a 2-part Broadway play. It plays over 2 nights because it's so long. And it is a sequel show that is about the kids of Ron and Hermione and Harry. Draco Malfoy has a role in the show, limited but it exists. And Tom Felton is returning to play him in the Broadway run. So kind of neat, but of course this meant that Tom Felton was at the Tony Awards and was asked about his return to Potter and what it meant with JK Rowling, and I'm going to let Tom speak for himself, and then I got some things to say.
How does the sort of Twitterverse controversy around JK Rowling's views impact you at all, or impact your work on the world at all?
No, I can't say it does. I'm not really that attuned to it. The only thing I always remind myself is that I've been lucky enough to travel the world. Here I am in New York, and I have not seen anything bring the world together more than Potter. And
so I'll pause it there, and look, I'm going to give Tom Felton here the tiniest benefit of the doubt, which is the second half of what he said there. I have not seen anything bring the world together more than Potter. And I think that 5-10 years ago, that sentiment is incredibly true and incredibly honest and incredibly sweet, which is, hey, you know what? This franchise, these stories really have brought people together. And there was a time in which I would fully agree to that. That being said, I'm not really that tuned to it. I haven't seen much of it. I'm not really in that world. Everything he said regarding JK Rowling and her controversy is an incredibly naive and borderline ignorant take to have. JK Rowling has made it her crusade, her mission to villainize and to hurt the trans community. And there is not a world where that is okay. She, with all her influence and all her power, one of the richest people in the UK, at one point rivaling the royals, I don't know if that's still the case, benefits nothing from putting down an entire community of people who are just trying to fucking live, man. That's all they're trying to do. They're not trying to push anything on you. They're not trying to hurt you. They're just trying to exist. That's all they're doing. And JK Rowling every day gets on her soapbox, gets on her Twitter fingers, and starts talking about the trans community in the worst, most vile way, specifically targeting trans women. And they go through enough, man. They go through enough every single day. And what is sad and what is depressing about this, and I think the point that Tom Felton was maybe trying to get at and phrased incredibly poorly, is that Harry Potter and the Wizarding World was an escape and was a place where people, queer people, especially queer people, but anybody who felt weird or felt different, had this idea that there's just a world where I belong, and it's this magical place, and it's right there, and it's attainable, and it's friendships, and it's community, and it's inner strength, and all these sort of things. And so to create that world and then to rip it away from this tiny, tiny community that exists, which is trans people and specifically trans women, is awful. So for Tom Felton to get on here and be like, I see Harry Potter bring people together. Brother, it used to. But it does not anymore because of the things that JK Rowling said. So you can be grateful for the opportunities that it has given you. You can be appreciative of the story that Harry Potter is, but you can fully disavow and separate yourself from that person, especially now. Completely tone deaf, who has done nothing since his lucky childhood except, look, that's not true. He's playing Draco Malfoy again. He's playing Draco Malfoy again. Is that not something? So for Tom Felton to come up here and really just full on just showcase his privilege on Variety and be like, oh, I'm just not tuned into it. I bet there are dozens, hundreds of people who wish they could tune out. I am sure there's so many people who grew up finding so much of themselves through Harry Potter, maybe even having the strength to come out because of Harry Potter and the Wizarding World and those stories, who wish they could just not be tuned in to JK Rowling's transphobia and her bigotry. And you have the ability to stand up and say something, and I don't know if you're scared. I don't know if you're just not thinking all the way through, but I really hope that the blowback that Tom Felton is getting from this is an opportunity to learn. And frankly, folks, you know I'm on your side on these issues. I agree what he said is wrong. I agree JK Rowling is wrong. But if this man actually looks inward and actually learns and receives some of the feedback that we are giving him, you gotta let people learn. You gotta let people learn, because otherwise we are yapping for nothing. We are yapping for nothing. So if he comes out with an apology, an earnest apology, and if he continues to show behavior that seems to speak on him having actually learned, we need to forgive and we need to allow for growth. Because if we're not letting people grow, we're just yelling to hear ourselves. And that's all I gotta say on Tom Felton. Warner Brothers Discovery is splitting into two companies. Oh boy. Warner Brothers, you cannot catch a break. So, Warner Brothers and Discovery will be splitting into two companies. The streaming and studios company will be led by Warner, and that will be Warner Television, Warner Pictures, Warner Games, DC, HBO, HBO Max, and then Discovery Global Networks will be CNN, TNT, Discovery, Discovery Plus, and all those other TV networks. Well, they really tried, huh? They really tried. This article came out. I haven't broken it down all the way yet, but you know, we're just maybe 3-4 years from the merger finalizing, and we're already splitting into two different companies. Warner Brothers has had such an unlucky run regarding their history and their acquisitions and everything, and it can really just be summed down to wrong place, wrong time, or right place, wrong time, or wrong place, right time. Warner Brothers has had such a bumpy history as one of the biggest studios and one of the most recognizable studios. Warner Brothers is over 100 years old, but several failed acquisitions and unsuccessful mergers have really just put it in a position of where we are today, which is like this company, and not recently, for many years, has been bleeding cash. And, you know, we've heard about David Zaslav doing these tax write-offs and doing all these crazy, tricky things to try and save some money, but this company just doesn't operate in the black. And unfortunately, this brings us here, where just a few years after their latest merger, which was after a massive acquisition, which is after a massive acquisition, which is after a massive acquisition, we are splitting them up. Where we go from here, I do not know, but it is just the latest step, the latest step in the Warner Brothers journey. And folks, we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive on Warner Brothers, but I think I'm actually going to be saving that for another day, because that is essentially what I have for you today here for Movie News Monday. If you want to know when I'm going live, your safest bet is to follow right here on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/Jupigorg. You can hit that follow button and always be notified when I'm going live. Otherwise, if you're like, hey, I don't have a Twitch account, but I like watching you, you can go over to Instagram or TikTok, and I will always notify y'all when I'm going live there. Or if you got a weird schedule and you're like, I just want to catch the highlights, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, because they'll go right there. But folks, I hope you have an incredible rest of your Monday, a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.